Whatever, we're on. Hey, welcome to our home buying seminar. It's 4 o'clock or so instead of 5 o'clock. We play it by ear here because we're busy. We want to talk to you. I'm Bill Gross, local real estate broker in Los Angeles, California, along with my colleague and friend.
Yes, Patricia Castillo.
Somebody's missing today. Who's that?
Yep, I'm busy. You're busy.
Yeah.
Um,
I closed an escrow today. I opened 2 escrows today. Didn't get. I lost a couple listings today. That still takes work to not get the listing.
Absolutely.
It's okay. But our friend Gustavo, who's the person who actually changes interest rates in the market, isn't here because of the bad news. It's his fault. He's running scared. What do you think, Patricia?
I think he's hiding out because of the 8% reading. Yeah, I think he's hiding out.
Yeah, and just so you guys see the numbers, I think this is the month of August, and we'd been 8% or 7% or higher all month, flirting
Mhm.
up 7.5, then back down, then above. It seemed like at 7.5, went down, then it got above 7.5, went to 7.8, and then 7.92 yesterday, and kaboom, we're at 8% today. And I think that's a number that will get headlines and attraction and noise. I don't know that it's significant. The payment between 8.0 and say 7.6 or 7.7, it's not that significant, but
Mhm.
psychologically, I think that's a big number. What do you think, Patricia?
It is. I mean, when buyers hear 7.5, which is where we were at kind of earlier last week, and at 7.6, 7.61 as of Friday. When buyers see the news that rates are at 8%, they do tend to get nervous, and that creates uncertainty. And so, it gets a little challenging when you have a listing and you have buyers come in and you see the interest and you see the eagerness to become a homeowner. But in the meantime, that they're talking to, their realtor or lender and finally trying to put an offer together, at that point, the rate isn't even locked in yet. So, we've talked about this before on the call to make sure you get your rate locked in as soon as possible, because when you are actively looking for homes, in this case, in the market we're in, the rates can literally change, overnight.
Yep.
So, I do see that becoming, somewhat of a concern for buyers. And, in dealing with this type of, volatility in the market, it also causes more work for us as real estate agents and listing agents, because we may have a buyer that's super interested, very qualified, and they end up pulling out because they think, maybe I shouldn't embark on this debt right now and buying this home right now. So, that's one of the things that we talk about on this call is getting buyers pre-qualified and also in position to make an offer and be ready to move forward, even if the rates happen to change a little bit. We want to make sure that you have, the financial solvency to be able to get through that.
Yeah, I think that number one, to understand that the deal is that tight, something's wrong. And I think also the other parts too, being prepared. It's funny. I have a colleague. I started in the mortgage industry in 1986, and I have a
Mm-hmm.
colleague from that time period, and he's going to become a coach to mortgage agents. And I helped him set up his coaching business, and so I was kind of a partner of his for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And he says he watches our call every week
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. He says it's funny. He goes, um, every call you guys do is telling the buyers, "Hey, get your paperwork in, you dumb blank." And we tell the sellers, make sure your buyer gets all his paperwork in, you dumb blank.
Right.
And it's so true that there are buyers now who, if your paperwork's ready, there's another buyer who just canceled an escrow, and you can
Yes.
get in and save some money. You probably will save more money than would take to buy down that mortgage for the same amount if you're ready to go, because the seller's emotional. And I think that's the opportunity that
Mm-hmm.
exists right now. Is a year ago buyers were complaining we can't get attention with their offers. You can't get offer accepted. And
Mm-hmm.
and nowadays you'll get attention if you're ready to go and you have your paper together. This is an opportunity of a lifetime, I think.
It sure is. And, what I was just, the example I was giving is actually on one of the listings that I was working on. So I had an open house this past weekend, very successful. Quite a few people came by, received a pretty solid offer, accepted it. But we also want to make sure that, the buyer is sending in their earnest money deposit on time. Technically, you have 3 business days to get your earnest money deposit into escrow, whether it's 1%, 2%, or 3% being the maximum of the purchase price. So if the money has not reached escrow, then that puts a little uncertainty as far as the listing agent goes and the seller, because that's your good faith deposit as a buyer, showing that you're ready to do business and you're putting your best foot forward with the offer you've made and sending the earnest money into escrow. It's really hard to negotiate with a buyer when they haven't even started that first main step by getting their money into escrow. And so you have to come to a decision. Are you going to put yourself in the best position possible to be able to negotiate and at least get something of what you are trying to negotiate? Nobody's home.
So I am home, but I'm going to put it on voicemail so that it doesn't interrupt us again. Sorry about that. My phone just rings nonstop. I can't help it. People call me. I try to stop them, but I'm just all that in a bag of chips.
You're just busy.
Try to be.
So it's really, again, it's positioning yourself as a buyer, making sure that you have not just your documentation ready, but once you open escrow and the time starts ticking, you have to make sure that you're ready to move forward, that your funds for the earnest money deposit are available. If let's say you're pulling money out of your retirement account to close the deal, that's fine, but you have time to do that. But you do want to make sure that you at least have the earnest money deposit set aside to open escrow, because you are required to be committed to the contractual obligations of the purchase agreement.
So what do you see as far as buyers coming to open houses and discussions and demand side of this? Where do you see that right now? Do you see a change? The rates have gone up and cool things off a little bit, or do you still see pretty active requests?
I see, and this is based on my personal experience being at the open house myself and greeting clients and talking to buyers. Over the last couple of weekends, the open houses, even this past weekend, were still pretty strong. I mean, I had at least anywhere between 12 and 15, families come through within, a 2.5 hour period. So I see that the interest is there and the demand. Obviously, loan applications for purchases are down right now because of the rates, but I'm not really getting any questions about what is my rate going to be. It's more of like, what is my payment going to be, and can I afford that payment?
Yeah.
So it's really helpful to, have some examples on hand so that I can share that with buyers that are coming into the open house, just to give them an idea, depending on, are you putting down 3%, because it's not like a one answer fits all. It really depends on what type of loan you're getting and what percentage you're putting down for your down payment. You can put as little as 3% down for a conventional, or 3.5% FHA, and then in addition to that, your closing costs, which could be anywhere between $8,000 and $10,000.
Well, I think that's the opportunity for buyers, is if you can find a combination that gets you the same spot, even with the slightly higher rates, whether it be seller concessions, using that money for buying down your rate, or using that money for something else, then that's the opportunity that's in front of you. Is you can still get the property at the same payment. You may have to negotiate for that, and that's what a good agent's going to do for you. Right. And last week, Gustavo went through, or 2 weeks ago, showed the difference in payments by the buy downs. You actually can come out with a lower monthly payment by negotiating a seller concession, and then using that to lock in your lower payment.
Yeah, and there's still definitely a lot of interest there. It's just making sure that there's enough communication between the listing agent and the seller's agent to get to that point where you can negotiate. I had a buyer's agent send in an offer, and then they just went dark. So you have that happen too, where it's okay if you're not interested in the property anymore, but at least communicate and let the listing agent know that you're not interested anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the challenge. That is definitely the challenge is communication. I think sometimes buyers get cold feet and assume, they don't understand that we're on their side as a real estate agent. You have what's called a fiduciary responsibility to your client. And
Sure.
if the client says to me, I want out, then my job is to get them out. It's not to fool around, even though I might, as a result, not get my commission. That's what they hired me to do. And my job is to do that. So, yeah, there you go. Okay,
Yeah,
so
we have. So what you were asking me right now about what kind of demand I'm seeing.
mhm,
So out of the last open house this weekend,
mhm.
let's say out of about 12 different families that came through, I have 2 that I'm getting, working on getting pre-qualified right now. So they're not going to buy the house that's for sale, but something that's more in line with their budget.
Okay.
There's a lot of people that are still renting right now, and because their rents have increased substantially, they're looking at
That's it.
like 500 in rental payment. And so now renters are really looking at, how can I get into a home today? Even, if it's a smaller home or a condominium, but something that they can invest in for their self and their future.
Well, I think the thing to keep in mind is just because the payments went up doesn't mean the rest of your life's not going to go up too. And I think if you're renting a property, you can rest assured that there's the whole purpose of what's happening in real estate is they're going to raise the rents when they can. That's why the
Right.
landlord has the property is to make money on it, unless it's a family member or something. And so
Mhm.
one way to lock in your payment is to lock in a mortgage. Now, obviously, you buy a property, you usually get a much nicer property than you're renting. So it's a lifestyle. And I always encourage people, well, what are you going to be able to save money on? Where you have a house now, you're entertaining more at home rather than going out for dinner, things like that. You have to factor that in and make those sacrifices to make it work for you. So.
Yeah. And everything is, it is a little bit of a sacrifice, but it's also in your own best interest. So, I mean, is it really a sacrifice? Is it just adjusting? I'd like to look at it as like you're adjusting to what your goal is. So you're not going to be full blown spending your money like you used to, because there does have, you do have to have some kind of budget in place so that you can work towards that goal, and it can happen just by adjusting.
Fantastic. Okay, well, look, we've had a nice little chat today. If you're watching on the YouTube or Facebook, feel free to put questions or chats or suggestions or content you'd like to talk about there as well. And Patricia and I are available to help you put together a plan that's going to work for you. This is not about everybody doing the same thing. It's about really assessing your needs and your finances and getting together with a lender to get your plan put together. So Patricia, if someone were to reach you and talk about getting a plan together, what's the next step?
So give me a call. I'm at 323-365-9909. And I also wanted to mention that right now is a good time to look into, down payment assistance programs as well,
Yeah.
because they are being highly considered by listing agents. Whereas, earlier this year, last year, those were probably the last offers, if at all, to even be looked at and considered.
At all.
So,
As a listing agent, I just said, listen, I've never done one of these. I don't think they ever close. No. And literally 2 months ago, we just closed escrow on a MIPA, not even a low income, but on a moderate income. And
yeah.
that buyer is saving, I want to say, is it 20%? I think it's 20% down payment by the city of Los Angeles. That's like free money. You can't afford not to, if you qualify for that, you can't afford not to get it.
Right. Yeah. And it's a great opportunity right now to really look into down payment assistance. So even though the rates are higher and buyers may think, or renters may think, I may not qualify right now, you may very well qualify. But the only way you're going to know is if you call me so that we can have a conversation.
Okay. So call Patricia. There's your number. If you call me, I'm going to refer you to Patricia because she really handles the buyers for our team. She does a great job and has great experience in helping people through that process. So on behalf of Patricia and Gustavo, who's not here today, but we did change the time on him. In fairness to Gustavo, for all we know, he's working hard and expecting to be on later today. So we kind of threw him a curveball. So Gustavo, I'd say we missed you, but Patricia, was nice to chat with you. I'll get a chance to chat with you as much as this usually.
That's right, Bill. Well, good information today. And, definitely give us a call, give me a call, and we can go over down payment assistance and see what we can do for you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you. Bye bye.